Botanic here again to make another video. Now on this chilly winter Portland morning, I decided that I was going to work on my Monstera. Now if you already follow me on Instagram, you already know that my beautiful pride and joy contracted thrips at the beginning of winter. This is my first time dealing with thrips, so I was a little bit concerned that I was going to lose the plant. So I have these beautiful cuttings here, which you can see have given me pretty significant root growth in just the few weeks I've had it. It's my idea to add the new cuttings to the original pot since I have obliterated the thrips issue. Now this leaf here is pretty much the only healthy leaf that's left on the plant. I decided to leave these other leaves here so that the plant had some source of energy to create new growth. Now the plant definitely looks like a little worse for wear. Quite a sad boy. So my goal today is to show you all of the things I'm going to do to bring this plant back to perfect health. I have my moss pole, which I'm going to be staking all of the plant to. I've got my neem oil mixture here, which is this concentrate mixed with a little bit of this dish soap. And I have my thrips killer. This systemic houseplant insect control was recommended to me by my friends in the plant community, specifically John, who owns Somewhere That's Green as a little plant shop in Bend. When I mentioned that I was struggling with thrips on my Monstera, he recommended this to me, so I purchased it immediately and it completely wiped out the problem. So if you're looking for something to help you with your thrips problem, then this is the way to go. Now I also brought out my cakey paste because we're going to take a closer look at the Monstera itself, and you'll see that there are little bits of new growth, and that is 100% due to the cakey paste. This stuff is pretty incredible. People were talking about it on Instagram, and I have seen for myself the actual benefits. This is my potting table in my backyard, and to be honest, I haven't been out here in a little while because it's been cold and rainy. But I'm excited that the rain has stopped this morning so that I could come out and work on this plant. Also with my supplies, I brought a teaspoon to measure my systemic houseplant insect control. I have some string. This is just some macrame cord that is a little bit small for my macrame craft, so I am planning on using it to help stake the plant to the moss pole, and I have a pair of scissors to assist me with that. Now I also have this very shallow brown box. This is usually what the plant shops will give you if you're carrying out multiple plants. This one just happens to be from Pistols here in Portland. And I like to hold on to these. I think that they're really useful when repotting plants. You can dump out all of the soil and the orchid bark and all that into the little shallow brown box, and it makes it really easy to transplant back in to the pot. So before we get started on the repotting, I thought I would quickly just show you some of the new growth that I'm experiencing. Now as we come up close to the plant, you'll notice that there looks like there's like some sticky paste on the tips here. This is my cakey paste. I found this on Amazon if you're curious. It's not cheap. It comes in a pretty small bottle, about that size. But it's highly concentrated, very thick, and you just need the tiniest little bit. So this is definitely something I would recommend if you are into propagating and experimenting with your plants. So what my goal is today is to repot this plant. I'm going to stake it up to the moss pole, and then I'm going to transplant the cuttings that I do have into the main pot so that it can create a fuller look. And I'm only doing this because I know 100% that the thrips problem is gone, and you can really see that the plant has suffered some significant damage here and here, and these are just the leaves that are left on the plant, so it's pretty sad. So I wanted to show you real quick the soil composition that this Monstera is living in is extremely airy. It's a little bit of potting soil mixed with some perlite and a ton of orchid bark. I personally believe that having a really airy soil for my Monstera is going to help bring it back to life so that it can thrive. So my first step, I'm just going to very gently pour the contents of the pot out onto my little shallow brown box. Now that we have dumped the plant out, you can really see the contents of the soil. Extremely airy orchid bark, a little bit of soil with some perlite, and I have quite a bit of leca at the very bottom of the pot to promote the best drainage possible. Now here are the beautiful cuttings that I took from my friend's coffee shop. I'm friends with some people who have a big Monstera in their coffee shop, and they gave me some cuttings when I told them that I was experiencing thrips on my beautiful baby. There's actually 2 cuttings in there to be exact, and they're thriving, they're doing so great. Now I know that we're in the middle of winter right now, and it's not really the ideal time to be repotting, but I have faith that because I have my heat on in my house and I have my humidifier running and the thrips problem is gone, I have faith that these cuttings will be transplanted into the new pot and everything will be thriving. So now that I've emptied the contents of the pot into this little box here, I'm just going to double check the roots and see how things are doing. Things are looking pretty dry down here. Some new growth on the roots, that makes me really happy. But some of this is looking a little worse for wear, which makes sense because the plant has been through a lot. Now some of the pieces of the plant have some badly damaged roots, so I'm going to be taking some cuttings off of the plant. I'm going to use a little bit of my rooting gel at the base of my cut. So that's what the base looks like when you add the rooting gel to it. Now I'm just going to continue that process throughout the rest of the plant. Now this is the piece of the Monstera I was telling you that's growing that new leaf right there. You can kind of see the tip of it coming out right there. That's hopeful right there. I've gone through and I've removed the soil from the roots so I could really check some things out. I did have some root rot, which is really strange with how airy this soil is. So I'm going to mix in some extra orchid bark when I'm repotting this plant. I'm suspecting that it has a lot more to do with the thrips damage and being out in the cold. You know, when I first discovered I had thrips, I moved the plant outside to isolate it, and it just happened to be at the first cold front in Portland, so the plant sat outside for about a week in the cold, which I feel like the worst plant mom in the world for doing that, but I also didn't want to infest the rest of my plants. So we've got some pretty healthy roots left here, and we've got some great new growth on the new part of the plant, and I have faith that through patience and time we can bring this plant back. Alright, so in my mixture here you can see that it's really airy. I've got lots of leca, I've got some potting mix, I've got some orchid bark. Now this actually looks to be like the perfect arid mix for me, but I'm going to add a little bit more orchid bark just because of the issue that I was having with the roots prior. And add just a few more scoops of the orchid bark. Now this looks really airy and like the plant would be really happy if it were to live in this. This would give the roots room to spread out and grow, and the water will not sit in the soil. So the plant was actually living in quite a large pot, which I think also might have contributed to some root damage. So as you can see, I've got a lot of pottery back here. I'm going to downsize the pot so that the plant will feel safer, more comfortable in a smaller pot. So this is quite a large pot, and the plant was quite large when it contracted thrips. So I'm just going to downgrade the pot right now. So I'm going to downgrade to a little bit smaller of a size. This terracotta I picked up from IKEA, and I love how it's worn. I prefer this over ceramic because it really does wick away the moisture from the plant's roots. It does dry out quicker, but that's okay. I do have a heavy hand with watering. I try to water like once a week, and I'm gonna give this a try and see if the pot size is better for the plant, and also I think that this terracotta will be better than this ceramic as an option, since I was experiencing some issues with the roots. So I'm going to start off by filling some of the soil into the bottom. Now, another really important thing is that you have a drainage hole. So you always need to make sure that your pot has a drainage hole, or if you're going to buy a beautiful ceramic pot, if it doesn't have a drainage hole, leave it in its plastic nursery pot like that, so that it can drain. It needs to breathe. Alright, I've got like half the pot filled up now with the leca balls and the orchid bark and the perlite and the potting mix, and I'm going to place my moss pole in here so that the moss pole can get really nice and stable. Now, I've been watching a lot of tutorials on how to make your own moss pole, and I'm really interested in that because this particular method is not my most favorite. I purchased this moss pole on Amazon, and I'm not a huge fan of it. So I think I'll probably be venturing into the world of making my own moss pole, but for right now, it's all I have. Alright, so I'm going to work on arranging the cuttings in the pot. And as you can see, the new growth on these cuttings is pretty astounding. The fact that this has just been a few weeks of growth is really inspiring. Yay! Wow, you guys, it was a little bit of a tight squeeze to get everything into the pot, but I think that this is going to be the most beneficial pot for this plant at the moment. In the springtime, when everything is comfortable and, you know, rooted up again, I will at that point probably upgrade the pot size. But for right now, this looks pretty good. Wow! Oh, you look so much better. Also, I really like to make sure that the soil is compacted down into the pot. So smacking the side of the pot can really help that. I've left just a little space here at the top, so when I water that it doesn't just boil over the side. Look how much better it looks. Wow. This is the water that my plant cuttings were living in, and it's really fresh. I change it on the weekly, so I've decided I'm going to use this water. I'm going to mix in a little bit of my insect control Now, if you read the instructions here, there's a conversion chart. I want to dilute this concentrate as much as I can. So I am just going to use half a teaspoon for this little bit of water, and then I'm going to water my plants through. So it's about half a teaspoon there. I'm just going to mix that into the water, and I'm going to just kind of let that sit. Now, when I'm finished here, I'm going to dump this onto the soil of the plant so that it has an opportunity to soak up a good drink and also protect against insects. So the watering will be my last step. For right now, I'm going to tie the plant up to the moss pole a little bit so that the moss pole is actually supporting the plant. As you can see here, along the back side of the moss pole, I just did 3 little bows, and that'll be really easy for me to untie if I ever do want to. Now that the plant is situated in its pot, I'm going to do a little pest preventative. This is my neem oil mixture that I like to use. You can buy it in this bottle already pre-mixed for you. And the concentrate version is also available in case you plan on doing this treatment more often. Now, this neem oil I find to be really great in the prevention of fungus gnats and mealybugs and spider mites, just any sort of issues that you have. You could really use this as a preventative measure. And I like to mix mine with a little bit of soap just to help the oil mix with the water. This one is the Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day. I love the geranium scent. It smells so good. I'm actually at the very, very bottom of it, so probably be getting a new one of that soon. So it's looking really great. I'm really happy with the finished product here. Before I pack everything up for the day, it's getting kind of cold outside. I am going to water the plant with the water and my insect control here. You want to make sure that the water is draining out of the bottom of the pot. I'm really super excited to see what happens with my Monstera through the next growing season. I'm really confident that this is going to be the best move for it at the current moment. I'm really happy that the cuttings that I took rooted up so quickly, and it really does look like a brand new plant.